Comments for tonight and open discussion for council members? Discussions here?
Oh, yeah, I got some.
All right.
Question concerning the senior exemption, and I want to know how certain we are that the senior exemption is going to be found legal in the long run, and if it would be wise for us to add something into our resolution that would allow the rest of the package to be legal if the senior exemption is ruled illegal.
As Mr. Nordquist mentioned, we brought a team of experts here tonight with us, so I'm going to defer to Mr. Neil Yeager from our office. We've got experts here in forming community facilities districts, so I'm going to ask him to respond to that question.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. On that particular question, I would preface my comments by saying, first of all, that senior exemptions have been used in community facilities districts. They have been used most notably with school district assessments because it's recognized that seniors may not have children in the schools, and so it's appropriate or maybe fair and just to allow for the opportunity for an exemption. How certain are we that it will not be subject to challenge? One of the advantages of living in this great democracy is anyone who feels aggrieved can go to the courts. You and I don't control that. That's up to the person who has the typewriter and the filing fee. So I can't tell you that it would not lead to litigation. I believe that under the Act, exemptions, this is not an assessment district. The tax, this is a tax. It's not based on benefit to anybody's particular parcel. The standard is whether it is a reasonable basis for imposing the tax. One can certainly argue that some seniors may not feel that they benefit from the parks, use the parks, etc., and that it would be fair and reasonable to allow them to seek an exemption. I would clarify one point in that regard. The assessment is levied each year. If a senior were to come in under the regimen that's proposed here, within the appointed time and seek the exemption and qualify for it, that tax would not appear on that person's tax bill. It would not be in the tax roll that's submitted to the assessor. It's not a question of reimbursement. They would not be taxed. But they do have to apply. The Act does allow for exemptions. It allows it by category. Federal property, state property, county property is not subject to assessment. One of the exemptions in this rate method is for houses of worship. We're not identifying a particular house of worship. It needn't be one that is even here today. It might be one that is here 10 years from today. It would be exempt. So we are exempting property owned by a class. We're not exempting seniors. We're exempting properties which are owned and occupied by seniors as a class of people, much like the county. If the county opens a library here, they will not pay this tax. You cannot levy it against them. So I think there are many good reasons to believe that the senior exemption would be upheld. Can I assure you 100%? No. Only a court can answer that question. I'm just a lawyer, not the judge. So that's the best I can do.
To your knowledge, has it ever been challenged before?
I'm not aware that it's been challenged. I'm not aware that there's any case law. It might be an issue of what we call first impression, if someone wants to bring the issue forward. But again, the tax, it is a tax, and for that reason, in the spirit of Proposition 13, it requires 2/3 vote. This is not something which can be passed with a lesser vote. But as a tax, if it has a reasonable basis, it can be imposed.
I guess my other
question along with that was, should something be added into our ballot?
I don't believe that should or could be done, like a savings clause, if what you're thinking, that if court were to decide it was inappropriate. I think the tax would fall. I don't think we can put in that we'll only do it if it's legal.
Well, there are such invalidation sections in other propositions.
But here, I'm afraid, in setting out the tax and the rating method, you know, we would not be able to do that. The tax, the rating method is to describe the method of allocating the tax, the exemptions that are available. So I would not recommend that. More, I think it would be, we would say that.
Okay, so instead of calling it a senior exemption, it's one of the class exemptions, people over 62.
Well, call it a senior exemption as much as you might call it or it's an exemption for properties owned and occupied by senior citizens as defined.
Okay. That answers those two questions. In terms of the questions, I'm not